welcome to our single viewer so far. We'll start in a minute or two. We'll wait to see if anyone else turns up, and let me just sort of get sorted and ready to go here. All right. The laptop's kind of far. I want to be able to reach it nice and easily. But I also don't want it to take up too much of your view. Does that work? That works. Cool. Good there. 1 sec, I'm just going to turn off the microphone and readjust it. All right, that should be a little bit better now. All right. You guys can chat in the, you can type in chat this time as well, which is nice, unlike last weekend when I did it. We'll get started sort of within a couple of minutes, hoping that a couple more people jump in. Want to make sure it's worth our time, of course. See, I don't know if that microphone being down there is going to be annoying, or whether it should be. No, we'll just leave it there. And what I'll do is just turn it up ever so slightly, so I don't have to. Otherwise, I've got to talk straight into it. And that doesn't work well. One sec. Did we drop for a second there? That's weird. All right, we're up to 2 viewers now. How are we on this this fine Sunday afternoon? So I guess you guys already know what you're doing here. Learning how to live stream and whatnot. We'll just wait another couple of minutes. I said 2 o'clock, but I'm hoping that sort of, within 5 minutes or so, there'll be a few more people hanging around. don't think we'll be dropping out anymore, which is good. Get my notes up. Yeah, cool. All right. Just make sure we can flick through all of our different templates that we've got here. Good. Yeah, that one doesn't look good. Not that. Here you can see, a bit of the setup that goes into it. Smaller, drag it around. See, normally I'd have this done already, but of course we're a bit not behind today. Getting everything ready. All right. Well, still 2 people. I don't want you guys to sit for another 5 minutes and then nick off because you're sick of waiting. I also don't want to get 45 minutes into it and then we've got all these other people that want to learn and find out what's going on, and then we'd have to restart, and we don't need that now, do we? Hey James, how are you, mate? Currently, there would be yourself and one other person watching at the moment, so not a big group at the moment. I'd send it out to around like 60 people or so. So I'm kind of hoping that we get a good 10 or 20 people coming in throughout the afternoon. That's why I'm just sort of waiting a little bit. Yeah, and now we've got 3 people, which is awesome. Hello to our new viewers. We will be starting in a minute. I'm just waiting for a few more people to turn up, so don't join and then disappear because I haven't started yet. Hey Brad, how are you, mate? Awesome. Yeah, we'll wait a minute. You guys can grab a drink, go to the toilet, whatnot. Let me just make sure I haven't forgotten any gear here. That should be all we need to show. I think that'll be right for now. See, we've got 2 concurrent viewers, but there's been 5 views in total. So there's been a couple of people that have popped in and then nicked off. So that's all good. You know what? I'm just going to start talking because you guys are probably sick of sitting here and just waiting for me to do my thing. All right, we can ignore that for now. Yeah, so I'm probably going to be sort of looking at the laptop more than the camera, which is probably not a good view for you guys. So I'll try and look at the camera as much as possible. But if I'm talking and looking over here, it's just my stream laptop, so I can monitor the chat and stuff. And throughout, so I expect this to go for an hour or so, where I just talk about all this stuff, and sometimes I might go off on a tangent or whatnot. I'll stop at a few points throughout it so we can stop for questions. If you guys do have questions throughout it, whether I answer it on the spot or at the end of each sort of segment, just chuck them in chat. That's why we're all here, just to hang out and stuff. And yeah, we'll just have a good time. So I guess I'll sort of talk about live streaming, and I'm mostly focusing on live streaming in the context of what we do at Red Onion. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways that live streaming can be done, and so we've sort of got our own way that we like to do things. We've tried to simplify it as much as possible, and it will change in the future. What you see here is maybe not what you might use next year if you happen to stream. And there'll be more sessions for this as well, so we can go over different things and whatnot. So yeah, so I guess we can sort of start with our gear choices here, and what we've got. And so a lot of people sort of think that streaming is a lot more complicated than what it actually is. Yes, there's some fiddling with the laptop that you might have to do and that sort of stuff, but overall, in terms of what we've got here is 95% of what you'd need on the ground. There are other little bits and pieces that you might, but in terms of what I'd be turning up to on the ground for live streaming, this is what I'd have basically with me. So I'll just quickly go through. Now, this is obviously your power extension lead. You'll always have at least one of these with you. If anything, probably two. You can see that there's a bunch over here behind me. There's a red tub over there with two more. There's a red tub over there with three more. So you can never have too many of those. So we'll always give you one. You can always buy another one yourself or bring your own from home or whatnot. Because when it comes to streaming at the footy grounds, there's sort of two things that we need to keep in mind. One is the weather. Obviously, the cameras that we use normally. There's a Sony up there that you guys probably all, pretty familiar with. The Sonys are weatherproof, but this gear here isn't. And so if you happen to be sent to a ground that's got a less than ideal filming location and it's impacted by weather, then you're going to need to move that filming location to somewhere that's going to be a bit better in terms of weather. So when you are doing a stream, yes, you've still got to film the game, but you're focusing on the stream first in terms of actually delivering it to the client. So we want to make sure that we're getting a good stream up, and that maybe you might have to change your filming location and the quality may suffer in that regard, but at least it means that we can have a safe stream that runs well, no dropouts or anything like that. So I guess that's a big thing when it comes to arriving on the ground, is making sure you've got power, and we generally try and figure out with you beforehand the best scenario for that, but sometimes it is a case of just going to your club on the day and just finding someone that can help you out with finding a PowerPoint. Generally clubs are really helpful, but you do have to go to them. They won't just assume that they can help you on the spot sort of thing. So there is a little bit of a few steps you have to take on your own to sort of get there, but it's not a big deal. And if you do have any concerns, that's where I come in, or Cam or Jaden or Kyle or whoever you happen to be dealing with across your region. Just gone a few minutes there on power. So here is a nice long HDMI cable. This one is, I think this is a 5 metre cable, but sometimes we'll give you a 5 metre, sometimes a 10 metre. So basically, this is just in case you need a bit of extra distance from your capture card and your camera. So you might have your laptop, it happens to be, you know, a metre or two away from your computer. At least that way you've got some extra room to work with. So we'll always give you one long cable. Now, one thing to note with the longer HDMI cables is often they're actually directional. So on this cable here, we can see that it says, there's a piece of tape that says it works, and there's also a piece of tape that states which end needs to be plugged in. So often one end will go into your TV, as it'll, like that's what it'll say on the cable, which they're meaning the capture card in this scenario. And then there's other end, then the other end will go into the camera. Sometimes there might also not be tape because the manufacturer hasn't done it, or we haven't done it. And so you might find on, you know, at your ground that your HDMI cable isn't getting a video signal. You just have to change the ends over. So just swap the ends over and give that a go. Generally that'll fix it, but we can talk about troubleshooting later anyway. So I'm just going to put that off to the side now. Next is our Telstra 4G dongle. So I'm going to change camera here. So that's our Telstra 4G dongle. Very simple to use. There's the SIM cards tray on the bottom. Let me get a bit closer to the camera here. So SIM card tray on the bottom, we provide the SIM card, and then there's literally just the power button on the other side here, and you just hold that one down to turn it on. So we can do that now. So generally in your kit as well, you get a micro USB cable to charge this one up. It does have a battery in it, but I always just leave mine plugged in and charging when I'm at my ground, because you can never be too careful when it comes to power and whatnot. So I've got our Telstra dongle there. Now, one thing with the Telstra dongles is we have essentially unlimited data on them, but the dongle may say there's only 5 gigabytes left. You can just ignore that. As long as you can turn it on and connect to it, no worries, and it just works, then there's no concern to be had. We're not going to send out a dongle that doesn't work. But if you do find you are having troubles, you just get into contact with either myself or Cam, and we can help you sort it out. So 4G dongle. Next is we actually have an antenna for the 4G dongle, and this comes in a couple of parts here. So firstly is this bundle of cable, and I'm going to unravel it here just to show you quickly. So first we've got so this here is a magnetic base. So this will stick to any steel, any ferrous surface, any steel or other ferrous metal surface. So often when I'm at a ground, I'll stick this to a pole or onto a roof or something to get the best reception out of that. Now it's got, the cable on it is probably 2 meters long, which is a good length, and you'll notice that on the end of it there's actually a cable that's slightly shorter there. So there's a connector in the middle here that can come undone. So I just always leave it connected together like that, and I'll roll it up, as you can see I've done here, and then I'll use that extra little piece on the ends to wrap around it, and that'll help hold it together. And that's one thing I like to stress to everyone, is making sure that you keep your kits clean and organised. There's nothing worse than opening up your tub full of gear and there's just stuff thrown everywhere, and you've got to spend 30 minutes before you can get any work done just sorting through things. So I always like to, I used to just, after my game, I used to always just throw my stuff in there and then deal with it the next day, but I found that if I spend the extra time on the day doing everything properly, cleaning up, I don't have any of that extra worry, and I know that next week everything's just ready to go for me. So anyway, so the antenna there, and we've got the 2 pieces, and then the third piece is just this here, a bit hard to see there, and basically this is just the actual antenna itself and just screws into the base there, and you want to make sure that you screw that down nice and tight so you're getting a good connection there. And then you can see how this would actually just be attaching to whatever you need to attach it to. Will that work? No, that's not. So it's simple enough to use, nice long cable so you can get it up nice and high. And then the way to attach it to your 4G dongle is on the end of the cable, the small cable, the adapter on the end. There's a short little connector. which we can show there. And then on the top of our 4G dongle, so we've got a charging port here, but then on the two sides of the 4G dongle are actually connections for antennas. So you can use either one, it doesn't matter which one you use, and you only need one, you don't need to use both. But this adapter just pushes on the ends, and it's not on there super tight, it'll just sort of sit in there. So it is something you've got to make sure it's kept together fairly well. It is kind of delicate. I'd maybe even tape it together, so just get some tape and run it over the top, but then you can see it just sits in there, and then this can sit next to your laptop, your dongle, and then the antenna can go, wherever it needs to be put, basically to be useful to you. So put that off to the side there. Explain the dongle. Obviously power board. Now sometimes we might give you a 4-board, sometimes it's a 6-board. For these streams, generally a 4-board is more than enough. If you are doing a more complicated stream where you've got commentary, which we're not going to be forcing anyone to do that to start with, you might have a 6-board or a 6-board for if you need to charge a phone or anything like that. But generally a 4-point is enough. Next, so I'm just going to put the 4-point board down on the side because I don't actually think I need that. Hey Pete, that's a good point actually. If anyone wants to ask any questions, definitely jump in the chat. Pete's one of our awesome stream operators and has been with Red Onion streaming longer than I have. So he's definitely the guru on all things streaming. So anyway, we'll move on next to our capture card. And so this is the Elgato Game Capture HD60S. And so we've got a good half a dozen or so of these, and some of them are the HD60, some are HD60S, and some are HD60S Plus. They're all more or less the same thing. It doesn't actually really matter which one you've got, but there are a couple of different ones, just so you're all aware. So we open up the box here, and see, this is what it looks like in the box. This is our capture card here in one side, and I do ask that, especially the capture card, that it is kept in the box. The main reason for that is that, let's move that out of the way. The main issue with our capture card is that the USB cable that comes in the box with it must be kept with the capture card. This capture card is only designed to work with this one USB cable, so you've got to make sure that this is kept together and they only stay together in the box. And then we've also got, I'm just going to put that over there. Then we've also got a short HDMI cable, and this is what you'd normally use to attach the camera to your capture card and then capture card to your laptop, which we're going to go over the connection of everything in a little bit. So don't stress too much about that, but that's just the capture card there, and I'll show that a bit closer in a minute. And then the last piece is your laptop and charger. Now generally we will provide a laptop for you if you have your own laptop that we judge is going to get the job done for a stream. You can't just use any old $200 laptop. But if we think your laptop's fine, then you can use your own. Some people prefer to use their own, but we will provide them if necessary. And I'm going to be able to hook this up to the stream and show you guys a bit later all the software side of things, so you're sort of getting to experience the hardware and the software here. All right, so more or less all you've got is a laptop, a capture card, 4G internet with an antenna, and power and HDMI. But that's all that you really need as part of a basic streaming kit. So give me one sec, I'm just going to move some things around. Have a drink. That there. That there. And it might help if we've got a camera to demonstrate it, hey? So here's one of our trusted Sony MC1500s. So we've got that booted up, ready to go. We're not booting up. All right. Troubleshooting. Let's get this camera going. Now I've got to spend a minute, unraveling this power cable because it was all knotted when I should have just been able to pick it up and just get going. So that's just stressing the reason for making sure that everything's tidied up all the time. We'll plug that in. I can see. Is there a reason you can't just stream So you actually could stream using. So when you say just using your mobile hotspot, are we talking about like using your phone, or are we talking ignore the laptop, ignore the capture card? We're talking just this, yeah. Yeah, depending on which one you mean, there'll be a different answer. We'll clarify that one. So, I guess to explain both sides of that. Sorry, one sec. Yeah, so you could use your phone perfectly fine. So I did a live stream last weekend in Bendigo, or not in Bendigo, I was at Gisborne, and I had my Telstra dongle here, not this one exactly, I think it was a black one, and I could not get it to work. Speed tests would work perfectly fine, but as soon as I actually tried to do anything, stream at all, it just would not work. So I actually did just hotspot my phone. And it worked brilliantly. All I had to do was obviously have it plugged in on charge. But besides that, yeah, it was perfectly fine. So you can absolutely use your phone, no worries. But the trick for us is that we do anywhere from 5 to 10 live streams every weekend. And so being able to have all these dongles go out to different people, but we only pay one bill. So that's sort of the main reason why it's set up that way there. Does that sort of answer your question there? All right, I think this camera's working. Yes, it is. Awesome. All right. So first, what I'm going to do is keep walking off camera so you guys think I'm just disappearing all the time. So I'm going to move it off screen, but I'm just going to be plugging in the dongle into power. Now, one weird thing to note when charging these dongles is technically they can be connected to a laptop via USB, and the USB port can be used for providing internet instead of Wi-Fi. The issue with that being is that as soon as the USB slightly jostles a millimetre, because you bumped your laptop or you were typing or something, it'll disconnect and you'll lose internet. So I've found the best way to charge this on game day is to have a separate, AC power adapter and have it plugged in separately, and then just use the Wi-Fi, because you end up getting a sort of not a better quality signal, but a more consistent signal. So that way you're not having dropouts. I've had games where my internet will just drop out randomly for no reason because, surprise, surprise, my dongle's disconnected. And you're scrambling to try and figure out what the hell's going on. Sure that we've got enough slack and all of our cables there. Yes, gaff is your friend, absolutely. So it's one thing you should always have, whether we provide it or you buy your own, always get some gaffer tape. So we've got some red stuff in the office here, but I would actually just go to Bunnings. There's this grey stuff you can get. There's also black stuff that I normally get from Bunnings, where is it? I had a, oh yeah, right over there. No. I had a black roll somewhere, but it's the Bear brand gaffer tape you can get from Bunnings for like $8 a roll, and I swear by the stuff, and I will not go to game day without a roll of gaffer tape. Everything should be gaffer taped. Connectors should be gaffer taped. I gaffer tape the laptop down to the case that I work with. Tape everything down, and untape it as well. Don't leave tape everywhere, especially at the grounds or on the cables. In this situation here, it's fine because they're labelled. But the worst thing you can do is leave tape on all your cables for the next person who's then got to rip it off, and there's all this residue all over it. No one wants that. I'm also going to plug in our laptop charger off camera as well. Now, this is one of the main reasons for needing power on your ground, is that yes, the laptop obviously has a battery in it and you'll get some amount of life out of that battery, but we can't be trusting our laptop batteries, so we'll always have it plugged in, and if you don't have power, you go find power. It's sort of one of those non-negotiables with streaming. You want to make sure that that you're all good. All right, let's continue on. I'm just going to stop for a sec because I've sort of been going. Is there any questions at the minute, or are we good to continue on? Our three faithful viewers. Make sure our laptop's turned on. Cool. All right, so when you would first arrive at your ground, you'd still go through your normal process with setup, so finding your filming location, contacting the club if that's necessary, do all that. And I'd suggest that you do your regular camera setup as normal when you get to your ground, and then you'd look at streaming, like all your streaming gear afterwards. The main reason why is that, yes, I know I said earlier that the stream is sort of the focus, and that we want to make sure the stream goes out and looks good. But say if you have a sudden severe failure, like something blows up or your internet's just gone completely kaput, we obviously still want the game filmed. So yeah, that's why I'd be making sure that you set your camera up first, so that way if something happens and you run out of time, your camera's still ready to go, you can still shoot the game. Because even if your stream drops out mid-quarter, yes, there's some troubleshooting we can do in the middle of a game if you've got time, but we still want the game film. That's still the focus for why we're there. One sec. Cool. All right, so let's start with the actual like hardware setup here. So what I'm going to do is swap our camera views. So on our Sony here, on the side, you can see the door here has fallen off, but normally the Sony cameras have a little door that flips out, and behind it there is just our HDMI port. So what I'm going to do is get our short cable, and I'm just going to plug one end of the short cable straight into the HDMI port on the camera, and I'm just going to run it through. Now I'm just going to move our long HDMI as well, because we obviously don't need this right now. There's no point having it take up all that space on the table. We've got that one there. Next is our capture card. So I'll show you this one up close. So on one side of the capture card here is a USB-C port. So that's the port that we'll be using to plug into the computer. We've got a HDMI in, so this is where our camera gets plugged into. And we also have a 3.5mm in, so we could use that for, say if we wanted to hook up a microphone, or in our situation, you're probably more likely to hook up an FM radio. So sometimes we'll have a radio station at our games that will broadcast, like we're doing commentary of the game, and so they might give you an FM radio that you can actually plug in here or into your camera as well, to then get that audio through onto the stream there. Now on the other side of the capture card is also an out HDMI port. So there might be a situation where you've got a commentary team with you, and there's a TV in the room, or perhaps the club at your ground wants the game broadcast on a TV. So this can actually go, so you have your camera going in, the output on here will just go out to any old display that you want to use to watch the stream there. So I can show you that a little bit later on. So we'll cut back. So what I'm going to do here is capture card, HDMI into our import, and then we've got our USB cable. So USB-C on one end goes onto the USB-C in, and then we've got a Type A, so your regular rectangle USB. So you could use your phone. The issue with using your phone is that you get delay. So you generally get, as Pete said there, you'll get roughly 30 seconds of delay. And I don't know if you've ever tried watching a footy game with delayed commentary. No good. So generally the radio stations at the ground will actually have they'll have a separate frequency where they can broadcast latency free. So your commentary's right there, ready to go, all good. But if you're at a ground where that's the case, we'd be discussing that with you anyway. We wouldn't just be, throwing you under the bus there. So now got our sort of capture. Yeah, we've got our capture card all connected there. We've got our 4G dongle and antenna ready to go. And that is more or less sort of the basic setup for a stream. In terms of hardware, in terms of what's getting plugged in where, this is your basic setup. So there are a few other things that we could sort of talk about on a stream. So you might have a commentary team where they'll need some microphones, some headsets. That's where your Rodecaster comes into play. Probably not really worth talking about today. I think we're just going to keep it sort of simple there. Alright, cool. So, in terms of hardware, that's the basic setup. There's no other big pieces that you'll need in a kit. But the thing that I always stress is bringing extras. So me personally being, a big nerd, I've got extra USB cables, I've got extra HDMI cables, all of those sorts of things. And we can obviously provide that for you as well, if you need. So it's always about testing your setup. So usually the streaming people will put all of their gear together on a Friday afternoon or first thing Saturday morning. They'll put it all together, plug it all in, set it all up, and get it going. So that way they know when they get to their ground on the day, they've got all the gear ready to go. If there's anything missing, you can figure it out then. So before you get to your ground, I need another USB cable or a longer HDMI or something like that. So I think that's sort of the bulk of the hardware. Is there any questions so far with that? Pete, is there anything that you'd sort of chime in with in the way of hardware? I'm always so surprised when I put it together and it's only a couple of pieces, because streaming just always seems like there's a lot more to it than that, and there really isn't. It's not that hard. So I unfortunately don't have a clutch unit with me, unless there's one in the office somewhere. Yeah, no clutch kits, unfortunately. So I'll just go over it quickly. So Clutch is a sports streaming company, kind of like KO, but for local footy. And so they're a company that we work with in Ballarat, in Gippsland. We do some stuff with NAB League with those guys. So we film the games, but then Clutch provides hardware and a little bit of back-end software and some support to us to be able to live stream. So what I'll do is I'll pull up a quick picture for you guys and just show you. So they use a hardware piece called a LiveView unit. So I'll just quickly pull up a LiveView here. Video partner. Window capture. Okay, so you can see here this is a LiveView unit, and so basically the way it works is it's got a HD. It's really hard to obviously show you here, but it's got a HDMI in port. It has a USB port to plug in a 4G dongle, and that's it. So this unit here, all you have to do is, you know what I'll do? I'll actually open a new tab. Oh no, go away. You need to open image in new tab. Yeah, that's better. So we can see here, yeah, HDMI port, there's a USB port here, USB port on the other side for a second 4G dongle, and that's it. So it is an easier live streaming solution. It's one that some of our guys use in some regions, and it's one that quite a few of you will probably deal with at some point. Sorry, 1 second. Try and run things, and I'm just getting messages. Send. Cool. So Clutch is something that you guys might use in the future, and I'll probably run a session in the future showing you how to use it. But it's super simple. Like it's even easier than this again. The hardest part of it is actually just plugging in the HDMI cable, and then you have to pull your phone out, and they've got a phone app for doing the scoring, which Red Onion will also have. Yeah, so spot on, James. So the LiveView is very, very similar to a Teradek. So I know Teradek's got a bunch of different products that, different categories. So I've used Teradek's HDMI monitoring products, and I know that they do have other streaming things. And there's another brand called YOLO Box that I'm kind of interested in doing a bit of research on. They might be suitable for some things in the future. But we don't have to stress too much about Clutch, but it is just it's an even simpler version of streaming than even what you've got here. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I've got, where is it? I've got a HDMI cable here that we can plug into a laptop. Give me 1 sec, guys. Make sure that we're sending our display correctly. Yes, we are. Perfect. So now, what I can do here, watch this. It works. Hey! So what you can see here is we've got obviously my camera on the left, and on the right side is the streaming laptop here. That's the screen there. So the edges are slightly cut off. It's probably not a huge deal, I don't think. If I happen to notice there's any issues there, we can swap it around. But that's all good. Let me just. What I'm going to do is software. How do you find your Teradek, James? I don't have much experience with those sort of all-in-one streaming solutions. It's something I'm interested in, but just haven't had a chance to sort of research them super closely. So the text is kind of small, but that's fine. So I'll start again. So what I'll sort of go over the software side of things in enough depth for you guys to understand the different steps along the way, but not to sort of overwhelm you, because you can go pretty in depth on the software side. But basically, we use a program called OBS Studio. There's also another version of OBS run by, what's the other one called? Completely gone out of my head. It doesn't matter which version you use, but it is free open source software that anyone can contribute to. I've been using OBS for 5, 6, 7, 8 years for streaming. I swear by it for streaming. I wouldn't use anything else. Yeah, Streamlabs, that's it, Brad, spot on. Yeah, Streamlabs OBS. So Streamlabs is a bit more gaming, streaming focused. So it doesn't really matter which one you use. I just tell everyone to go to the regular OBS because it's obviously run by the OBS Foundation or organisation. How did you find the experience with live streaming to Facebook with that stuff? Because all of our streams go to Facebook, and it can be a bit frustrating at times, but it's not a bad experience by any means. So what I'm going to do is go to a blank. So delete, yes, delete. I hope if I click on it to delete it, hey? Oh, my hub, if I read it, needs to be at least one scene. I like OBS because it's basic enough that anyone can pick it up, more or less, but there's enough you can do with it that, if you're going into more advanced things, you can do more advanced things with it. I'm just going to call this scene for now. So what we're looking at in OBS, here we go. So what we're looking at in OBS is this is what OBS would look like when you open it up, and you've never used it before. So in terms of where to begin for setting up for your stream, I will show you. So normally on a Friday, I send out an email to my streaming operators, and I pre-schedule the live streams on Facebook or YouTube, if that's the case. I'll give you your stream key and URL ready to go, and we can talk about that in a little bit, about what a stream key is. And then I also send a zip file that contains the graphics and like a graphic template that you can import into OBS, and everything's just there ready to go. So basically in terms of setup, there's very little you guys actually have to do. But I'm going to show the process for setting it up from scratch, because it's always good for people to know, if you turn up on a ground and you do need to set up the graphics from. I apologise for that. Apparently our super awesome internet at the office just... one sec. Apparently the super awesome internet at the office just dropped out there, but that's good to know. If that happens again, I'm not going to just disappear. I will stick around. You know what, part of it's probably that I'm using, that might be connecting to the dongle for Wi-Fi and not the office Wi-Fi. Anyway, sorry. Going back, so this is what OBS looks like when you first open it up. Nothing in there. So the first step you want to do is we need to add in our sources. So the first one we want to add in is our capture card. So first you'll want to add a new scene, and we're just going to click the plus and OK. And then what we want to do is add sources. And so there's a bunch of different options for sources, from audio input capture, which that's how I'm getting the audio that you can hear now. audio output capture. So say if your laptop is playing a sound, like you're watching a YouTube video on the laptop and you want that audio to go through to the screen, that's what audio output capture will do. Browser is just paste in your URL, and then it'll put that URL on your live stream. Do this so you can see me explaining as well. Color source I've never used before, so we're just going to ignore that for now. Display capture. So say if you've got a computer that's got a couple of displays and you want one entire display on your stream, you can click display capture to choose that there. Game capture is pretty self-explanatory. If you play a game, you want to capture just the game, use game capture. Image and image slideshow are also self-explanatory. One image versus multiple images. You might want to have a slideshow of images that play through every 10 seconds or something. That's what the slideshow is for. Media source is videos and other types of media. So maybe a PDF, or funnily enough, you can actually add Photoshop PSD files as well. So that's OBS having some of those extra features. That's one of them there. You might want to add in an entire scene. So once you do get a bit more complicated with your graphic setups, you might have to have specific transitions and timings and this and that. And so you might want to import an entire scene as one object. So you can do that as well. Text is just a regular old text object. So I'm actually going to click that here and just show you quickly. So what you can do is just straight type in text, and you can select your fonts. You can scroll down and select your colours and stuff. But what you can also do is tick this read from file button, and I've actually got some text files here set up, which I'll show you in a bit. So let's just find a random one. Bailey from GBL, red scores, data, football. So let's go current home team. So I've got a text file that says Echuca. I've now essentially imported that text file in, and I'll explain a bit later on why that's useful. Now you can see that our text source has popped up down here, and what we can do is right click and rename to something that might be a bit more useful. So you might have home team name, for example, and you obviously want to name them something useful so that when you're in the middle of a stream and you do need to fix things, you're easily able to click around and find what you're looking for. So what we're going to do is flick back to the camera there. You can see in our sources window we have a little button that is an eye, and that is just to show and hide our source. So you might have an image popping up, which I'll show you again in a bit, that you might want to hide and show at any specific times throughout the day. So that's easy enough to do there. And what you can actually do is you can add transitions when you do show and hide items. So what I've done here really quickly is I've just added a fade onto this source. So you'll see now when I turn it on and off, it'll fade in and out. And you can actually change it depending on it being a show or a hide transition. So you can see here now when I show it, it'll just flick on. And then when I hide it, it'll fade out. So depending on what sort of mood you're looking for, you can really tailor your graphics to however you want, basically. What we're really looking for, though, is this item here in our sources menu. So it's the video capture device. So when we click on that, and I'm going to call it Elgato, or Elgato, however you want to pronounce it, because that's what our capture card is called. So we're going to go to the dual camera. So now you can see we've got our video capture device window, and it's the same as every other source window, basically, just a few different options. So it'll usually default to your webcam, so that way at least you know OBS is working and doing something. But you want to click the drop down menu, and we need to find our Game Capture HD60S. And so now what we can see our Sony camera there. I'll put my hand in front of it, we can see that through there. So all you have to do to know that the capture card is working is just have a video preview pop up in here. I'll talk about the troubleshooting steps in a little bit, but right now we don't have to worry about that. So I've added my, I'm going to delete that. I've added my camera, and then what I'm going to do is just show you quickly. So what I'll do is I'm going to show you what I would send my operators. So, or just, you know, an example of what I'd be sending my operators. So change our view to extra large icons. So we'll have a folder called Red Scores, and so that's our scoring application that I've written, and I'll show you. Very super simple to use, and the idea is that it's the little app that we use to update the score on the live stream itself, to make life nice and easy, and it will be changing into a phone app eventually. We'll talk about that in a minute. You can see here I've got 2 images and a PDF. These are all ads. So different leagues have different requirements for ads. Some of them have videos, some are photos, but we would send it to you. I'd tell you, you know, when you're showing it, how long for. As an example, I do Ballarat every weekend, and I have a Buxton real estate ad and a McDonald's ad. Both of them are 15 seconds long. I play them once I play it once at a quarter time, once at half time, once at 3/4 time, and one at full time. And that's all I've got to do. And so I'll show you how to do that in OBS. And then there's a couple of other things. So there is an image here, and so this is our holding image. So when you're not actively filming the game, say it's the quarter time or half time, there's no players out on the field, you would be showing this image, so that way people know that there is a game happening and it's there and live, but they're just not, you know, you're not showing a camera straight away. You go there. Then we've also got a scoreboard image. So I'm going to open this one quickly to show you. Now you'll notice that there's nothing there, basically. It's because it's got a transparent background, and that's exactly what we want. So if you were to open this image and it were all white in the middle of it, we definitely don't want that, and it means that I've done my job incorrectly, basically. The last file in the folder is GVL Scene Collection for OBS. So this is actually the graphics template that we would be importing. Now we'll do that in a little bit, but not right now. So we're going to go back to OBS now, and we're going to start importing the rest of our graphics templates that we need. So what we can do is hit the plus, and we're going to click on Image. So I'm going to call this one Scoreboard. I don't expect you guys to name them exactly the same as what I named them, but just whatever happens to be useful for you. We've got nothing here, and all we just need to do is click Browse. And we're going to go back to that folder that I was just talking about a minute ago, and we're going to import our scoreboard image, and then hit OK. So now you can see that our image is over the top of our capture card, and if I click the eye, you can see that we can just hide it and unhide it, nice and easy. And you can see there's also a watermark up there, which is exactly what we want, slightly transparent. So there's your scoreboard graphic. Next we'll click Add Again, and then Image. We're going to add a new one, and I'm going to call it Holding Screen. There we go. OK. Browse, and then we'll click our Holding Screen image. OK. And I'm going to hide that now, because let's just assume that it's the middle of a quarter, and I don't want to be showing a holding screen there. So that's sort of, in terms of graphics, those are the holding screen and the scoreboard are the main thing we want. But then there's also some text files that we're going to need to import as well. So we're going to click on Add Again, and then go Text. And so I'm going to call this one Home Name. So you could call it Home Name or Home Team Name, but just whatever happens to be useful to you, whatever you think works for you. I do import the ads, and I'll do that at the end as well, and I'll show you. I should have a video ad downloaded, hopefully. For our text files, we're going to click the Read from File button and then click Browse. And so you can see, if you remember, we were working with the home name source first. So we're going to go into red scores and then data and then football, and you'll see current home team. We're going to click on that and then OK. Now, well, obviously we don't need to actually enter in a home team name because we have it on the graphic already. My scoreboard for Ballarat doesn't have the names on there. I'm confusing myself now. So let's go back and add text. And we're going to do home score instead because that makes more sense, doesn't it? Home score. We're going to tick read from file and then browse. And we're going to go score home. OK. And then, so this works very similarly to, like Photoshop and all that, where you can just drag the handles to move it around. Now, one annoying thing that OBS does is it kind of snaps sometimes these sources as you're dragging them around. So what you can do is hold down the control key and you get more fine-tuned control over where things are going and how big and small they are, because sometimes it can get a little bit fiddly. So we've done our home score. We're also going to do away score. So again, tick read from file, browse, and then we're doing score away. Okay. Now I'm just going to drag them roughly into position. They're not exactly the same. And so this is a good example of why setting up on a Friday afternoon is a good idea. If you do happen to need to make graphics, at least you know you've got lots of time on a Friday afternoon to put them together and, make sure that the number 2 sits perfectly where it needs to be sitting. But what you can do is once a source is selected, you can use your arrow keys and just shift things 1 pixel around. So if you do need to get that fine-tuned control, you can get that nice and easy. So we've added our scores. There's 2 more text items we need to add. So we're going to do current quarter. And again, same process, tick the box. We're going to select the current quarter option, text file, resize it. I'm going to put it, roughly where I think it should be. And then there's one more we have to do, and that's going to be called timer. Tick the box, browse, and then you can see counter. So timer, counter, either way, it's same thing. Make it quite a bit smaller. And so sometimes, look, this laptop doesn't have a big screen here, so trying to get that exactly in position can be fiddly. So what we can actually do is click on timer down in our sources window, and you can see that it selects our current source, the source that I want to select. And then we can hit Control E. And what that does is brings up a menu where we can go and manually change the location of things. So you can see here I'm changing my X position and then my Y position nice and easily. You can also go in and change the physical size of it. So if you find that you want a bit more vertical height on it, then you need to move it back a little bit. You can get those perfect little pixel adjustments on it. So we've added in all our text. We've added in our scoreboard and our holding screen. Our last thing to do would be add in our ads. Thanks, James. That was a good catch actually. So I'm just going to call it ads. And you might, again, it depends on the specific requirements of your stream, but you might have, I'm going to go back to this one. So you might have an image, you might have a video, you might have a PDF, and as this example shows us, images and PDFs. But for now, we're just going to focus on the image. So we're going to go back to our folder, and we're just going to import the What's On flyer. So this particular image, I don't like it because it's obviously in the vertical format, but in this situation what I would do is you might center it here. What you could also do is put that image on a separate scene. So you might want to create a brand new scene and then re-add in that image. And what we can do is instead of creating a new source, because we've added that image in before, we can click this button and then adds. And that will add in the exact same image as we did before, and we can then move it around. And so I might put that there like that. Let's just assume that that's centered on the page. So that might be my ad scene there, and then I might flick back to this will be my main game scene, and then I've got my ad scene here. So I might flick over to my ad scene for a minute or two during the break, and then I just click back over to scene 2 over here. So just like that, in 5 or 10 minutes, we've gone from never using OBS before to having all of our sources and stuff ready to go. And so the last step of the equation here is we would need to enter our stream key and stream URL. So, and again, those would depend on the requirements of the stream. Sometimes we go to Facebook, sometimes it's YouTube. We have our own platform, Darkcast, it might be Clutch. And those, again, requirements will be discussed with you beforehand. But what we can do is open our settings menu in OBS and then click on the stream menu here. And what we'll want to do is select the service drop down and then click on the service that pertains to us. So I'm going to show you, we've got a private Facebook group for the live stream operators, and we've got that there so we've got that there so the live stream operators can go in and test their streams. They can set them up, they can go live and send the feed out, and other people can watch it. Like I can go in and the other guys from the team can go in and give feedback on your Friday afternoon or whatnot. Can all this be saved so you don't have to do it every week? It absolutely can be saved, and I'll show you in one sec how we can do that. So what we're going to do is open up. Do I even have Chrome installed? I do, yes. So we're going to open up Chrome, and we're just going to go to Facebook. So I hope we're signed into my account. That would be good. What I'm actually going to do is just flip over. One sec. Alright, so let me flip back. Alright, so here is the Red Onion private test live streams group. So we can add you into this when you do some live streams with us. But all you have to do is click on the live video button and then set up live video. And then once it loads, this can take 5 or 10 seconds to load up. All you have to do is copy, and that's our, you can see that's our stream key there. And what you'll probably want to do is add in a title, so test stream. So what I'm going to do is, copy that stream key. We're going to go back to OBS now, and you'll see in this box here for stream key, we're just going to delete the old one, paste in the new one, and then hit apply. And then go OK. And so now, what I can do, and we can see how I'm connected to Wi-Fi, is if we hit start streaming, so it'll say connecting, it'll take a couple of seconds and then stop streaming. And then we can see we have a green box. So the green box is good. Sometimes there'll be a yellow box that pops up. A yellow box means that there is a feed being sent out, but it's not at the full bit rate or the full quality that you've set it to, or that is required for the platform. And so it might only be pushing out 10 frames a second instead of 30, and it'll be jittery. And there's also red, which means that your stream is just gone completely. But we can see it's gone green and it's stayed green. And to confirm this, we can just go back to Facebook, and I can see that my live video here is all ready to go, and then I can hit go live. And when I do that, we're now live on Facebook, and there's 13 people in this group that might pop in and check out this live stream. So we'll go back to OBS, and as long as that stays green, we're all good to go. The other thing that you'll want to do after you hit start streaming is also start recording. So when you are doing a stream, you still film the game and record the game to the camera. You do all of that like normal. We're actually going to go back here. Yeah. So film the game like normal on your camera, straight to the SD card. You will also be streaming to Facebook, and Facebook or YouTube or whoever does keep a copy of that stream online. And you'll also want to hit the recording button, and that will save it in the videos folder on your computer. And you can see there's a couple of, you can see that's actually our live video being recorded as we speak there. So that way you've got an extra copy. If your stream happens to go down and OBS crashes midstream, unfortunately that recording would be corrupt. So that's why we'd record to the camera. That's why we've got the Facebook stream, you know, that's why we've got Facebook's copy. We've got to have all of these different steps because you just never know what's going to happen on the day. So we can see we're still live there. So I'm going to end this now because it's not really pertinent to what we're doing here. So we'll just minimise that for now and go back here. So James, you asked about saving these every week. So what I'll do is go back a step, go to downloads, and then GVL1, or whichever folder belongs to you. And so we're going to bring our attention back to our .json file, and so that's the one that we want to be importing into. We're going to stop streaming, stop recording. So we'll open up OBS, go to Scene Collection and Import, and then we'll click the three dots. And I've already found it here, but what you'll want to do is browse to that folder. So I'm referring to the zip folder that I would send you in the email each week. That's how you're getting all of these graphics, and it would change each week. The idea being that I set up all the names and the graphics and whatnot for you, and then you just put them in there nice and quickly. So we can double click on that file there, and then just hit import. Now when you do that, nothing will happen, and that's completely normal because what we need to do is click on Scene Collection, and then we will browse to the scene that we just imported. So it was the same name as one that we already had there, so it's this one here. We'll click on that, and so what you'll see is it's already got a main scene and a holding scene, and it's already got a bunch of graphics already imported. The issue being that I set them up on my computer, and the file locations are in a specific spot. You can see here when I hover over that file, it's on the desktop of Caleb's computer, but they're in a different location on this computer. So what we want to do is start at the top. We've got our counter.txt. So what we want to do is in the new file column, click the three dots, and we'll then navigate to the folder that has our counter. So again, red scores, data, football, and then counter. And so because in that folder there's more than one text file, what it'll do is scan the folder and find the rest of them for you, and we can hit yes, and it fills out all of these here ready to go. It is also still missing the scoreboard and the holding screen, so we can again click the three dots, go back to our folder, and so scoreboard. So you want to make sure that you are adding in the correct source as well. So if you've got the scoreboard source over here and scoreboard graphic, you want to make sure that the new one you're importing is the correct one. And then same with the holding screen. Because they were in the same folder, it already scanned them, found them ready to go. We can hit apply here, and what you'll see is all our graphics pop up ready to go. We've got a different font. They're the right size, the right colour. The only thing that we have to actually add is our video capture device. So because this is a new scene, like a brand new template, the camera source that we added earlier is no longer there. So we just want to go in and add in our camera source, which will be Elgato. Look at my typing. Look at that. Doing well here. So we'll go Elgato, Game Capture HD60S, which will then turn on our Sony camera. Now, in our sources window here, you'll notice that the camera's over the top of everything. So this list is actually like a hierarchical list of how the elements sit in the window. So the Elgato is on top of the timer graphic, is on top of the current score, quarter, and on top of home, away, and then the scoreboard. So what we want to do is click and drag our Elgato all the way down the bottom, so then it's underneath everything. And so now we've imported that template, and just like that, all of your graphics are ready to go, and you didn't have to do anything. So theoretically, week to week, importing this file here, the same way that we just did it in the scene collection menu, is the hardest part of your stream setup. So I send the email after 2 p.m. on a Friday. It's got to be after 2 p.m. because Facebook only lets you schedule streams up to 24 hours out. So the games usually start at 2 p.m. on Saturday, so I've got to do it after 2 p.m. on Friday. After I send out that email, you'll have the graphics, and any time Friday or Saturday, you can go through and do your test, plug in all your hardware. We'll flip back. You'll plug in all your hardware, import your template, test it out, and you can even go into the private stream group and make sure that it works. Get opinions on anything you need to change, and make sure you're prepared. Basically, I'm going to quickly show you as well. We've mentioned Red Scores a little bit. So Red Scores is our scoring application. Currently, it's designed to work on Windows. I can make it work for Mac if you want. If you've got a Mac and you're using a Mac, just tell me and I'll give you the Mac version. But it should just work perfectly fine on any Windows computer. So we've got two different Red Scores, but the only one we need to worry about now is football. And then Red Scores, so we'll double click that. Now, one issue with Red Scores normally is that it will tell you that it's a virus or something. And it only says that because I wrote the program myself and it's not signed with a valid certificate, so it's trying to say that it's malware or whatnot. It's not. There's nothing, no malicious code or anything to hurt your computer. That's just Microsoft being Microsoft. So here's our little application here for Red Scores that is written in Python. Nice and simple and basic. And in terms of how I'd be set up on the day, I have OBS on this side of the screen, I'll have Facebook on this side. So I've got a good view of Facebook, a good view of OBS, but then I'll also open up Red Scores over the top. So at least that way I can see all into OBS and monitor it. I can change my main scene. Oh, yes, it might help if I show the laptop, hey? Alright, let me roll back 30 seconds. My apologies. Let me roll back 30 seconds. So, alright, so I've got OBS, and we've got our folder with all of our assets and graphics and stuff. And so we're going to go into the Red Scores folder, and we've got two folders here, cricket and footy. So we're going to click on the footy one, Red Scores. There's the note about the malware. If it tries to tell you to not run it, there'll be a show more info button, and then there'll be a run anyway button that will pop up. So there's no issues there. Like, you can get it to run perfectly fine. It'll just try and tell you to not do it. So there's Red Scores there, written in Python, very basic. And again, this is how I set my windows up on the day, so I can monitor everything nicely. Everyone's got their own different setup, and you can figure it out on your own. One cool thing you can do with Windows is, what I'm trying to do is, so when you drag a window to the side, it'll snap, and if you snap on the left side, it'll bring up all of your other open windows, and you can click one to have it automatically fill the right side. Now, you may have noticed that OBS actually isn't snapping perfectly. What you can do is drag the bar in the middle and actually make your apps bigger or smaller. So if you want OBS to take up a bit more room, you just hover in the middle and drag it over there. So that way, yeah, I can see OBS, I can see Facebook, but more importantly, I can also see my scores. So usually, so see you've got your team names here. Sometimes they might be incorrect, and to change those, all you have to do is go into your folder. So that's Bailey GVL in this situation. Go into your Red Scores folder, and then data, and then football, and then you just need to open up the current home team and current away team. So let's just change these as an example to, if I can type, Ballarat, and then We will save that with Control S and close it. We then want to close red scores, go back, and then we want to reopen red scores. Here you go, here's our warning here. So Windows protected your PC, more info, and then run anyway. Now, usually red scores might take 10 to 30 seconds to start up the first time, so be a bit patient. Sometimes I've opened it a few times and then there's 3 or 4 red scores sitting there. But it is pretty self-explanatory, so home +6 adds a goal, home +1 adds a behind, -1 if you make a mistake. So what I'm going to do is just, usually when I send it out with the 222 on there, so you guys can actually go in and make sure red scores is working by just going in and changing the scores. So we're just going to do that really quickly. And then what we can do is hit current quarter, and what that will do is that changes the text for our quarter. So you'll see, there's probably a second or two delay there, but we can just click that and that'll flick through. So quarter 1, quarter time, quarter 2, half time, and so on. So let's just say we're in quarter 1, and the ball's just been thrown up. So we're going to hit the start button, and that will start our timer. What we can also do is obviously pause the timer, and then if we hit start, we can start it again. Now, one thing you don't want to do is hit start more than once, because what it'll do is just tick it twice the speed, and then you have to reset it and then hit start again, which means you're at the start. So it is a little bit clunky in that regard, and that will be changing very soon. There will be a new app that you guys will be using very soon for doing the scoring. But it is a very easy system, and you get plenty of time in between a goal to just quickly lock off your camera, you lock off your tripod, move off to the side to your laptop, quickly change the score, and then just go back. If it's a behind and the team plays on really quickly, I'm not fussed if you're not entering behinds as soon as they're scored. If you have to wait till the next behind to add 2 or whatnot, that's fine. Don't stress. It's not a big deal as long as we have the final right score in the end. And so that's sort of about it in the way of OBS setup. So we're going to stop now, and if you guys want to type a couple of comments in the chat, I'm going to grab a drink and just answer some messages. Is there any points that I sort of need to go back on and reiterate? I do apologise if I was moving. I apologise if I was moving through things really quickly. I've been doing streaming long enough now that it comes as second nature to me. But I shouldn't be assuming what you guys do and don't know. Yeah, Brad, so I will leave this up on YouTube, and I've actually recorded the entire stream. I've recorded the whole stream to the laptop separately. You're recording this as well. Perfect, James. That's awesome. Look, I'm recording as well. So I'll have a copy that I can upload for you guys if you want your own copy of it. And there'll be more of these. So we haven't spoken about clutch very much. We haven't spoken about commentary very much. If there's more than one camera, you'll see here off to the side, I've got a little thing that lets me just swap camera views. We can put up to 4 cameras into this. So, there are other things that we can sort of go over in terms of the setup. Just get my drink. All right, questions. So I'd agree, James, that it's simple when you place it out like this, but it's a completely different story when you arrive on the ground on the day and you've got a limited amount of time, you've got a limited amount of space, it's cold, and it's wet, it's raining. It can be annoying sometimes, and it generally will take 2 or 3 times to get your routine with it. But once you've figured out, this plugs into this thing, this is where the power is, and all those sorts of, little bits. How do we set up the graphics? Once you know those little steps, it is pretty easy. The hardest part is troubleshooting. So that'll be sort of the last thing I mention here. So Brad, it's not a Stream Deck. It is a Blackmagic Atom Mini. So it's a 4 HDMI in capture card that then just outputs through a USB cable into your laptop. So any old laptop can use it. And just like that, we can add. I've got 2 cameras already. We could plug in a 3rd camera and a 4th camera just like that. I love a Stream Deck. The Stream Decks are super useful, and they'd actually be useful for doing all of the, changing the score and stuff on the stream. I've got a solution for it. It's coming, so don't worry. I'm always looking to make life easier for you guys. What connections would be useful to gaff tape? So the HDMI that goes into your camera would probably be number 1, especially on these old Sony cameras. I find that your HDMI here can be less than ideal. So often I'll tear off. What I'll do is I'll get my tape. I'll tear off a piece like this, but then I'll tear off an even smaller piece like this. And then, why is that camera's all blurry? That a bit better? And then what I'll do is tape up the HDMI connector, just like that there, leave it hanging, and then plug it in, and then use the leftover strip to just hold it against the camera. And you'll often find that, sorry, I was banging into the mic there. You'll often find that we might give you a HDMI that's just got tape on the end of it, on the connector. That's generally because that's what we've done. The other stuff to tape might be the antenna that plugs into your 4G dongle there. I generally don't have any issues with that falling out or anything, but it is something to keep an eye on. What I also do, and I'll show you here, so this here is my stream case that I use week to week. So I can fit a camera, a laptop, and all of my cables in this one tub. What I do is I'll leave everything in there that I don't need, and then on the top here, which you can see there's plenty of tape on there, I'll actually tape the laptop to the lid itself. So if I need to go into the case to grab anything, the laptop's here, nice and safe. It's not going to fall off or anything like that. And that might also be a good solution, even if you're just on a table or something. For a live stream, there's going to be cables everywhere and gear everywhere. And so having everything secured down definitely helps. If you do happen to be using something like the Atom Mini here, I also tape that down because you can have a bunch of really thick, heavy HDMI cables pulling on it. That might be another one that you want to tape down. And so again, I usually just tape it down to the lid. Brad, I noticed you asked about for swapping monitors. Are you talking for just like a regular computer setup? Theoretically, yes, it could, but you can get HDMI splitters that are fairly cheap. And so I've actually got a second Atom Mini here that I can show you. So let's flip to our overhead. So here is our Atom Mini. So the four numbered buttons here are for swapping between your 4 cameras. There's a few buttons here for setting, turning on and off the microphones for each HDMI, and then we also have 2 separate microphone inputs. We can change our transitions on the fly. We can change the type of transitions and picture-in-picture modes. There's heaps of different options with these. I haven't had a chance to fully sort of explore how useful it could be. There's going to be some cool stuff I want to try in the future. And I'll just show you on the back here. So there's your power plug. There's an Ethernet port that you could plug into the computer, into your laptop or your computer, whatever you're using for the stream, and you could use that for the control. But that's more of an advanced use case. What you'd normally be doing is just plugging a USB cable into your USB port here, and then the other end into your computer, and it pops up in OBS just like a regular old webcam. And you can see here, HDMI 1, 2, 3 and 4. There's another HDMI out port, and so this one can go out to a monitor that you've got for monitoring the stream. The issue is that the HDMI out only sees whichever source you have selected. You can't sort of, you know, have number 3 coming out of the HDMI while number 1's coming out of the USB. It's not quite that advanced. It was also only like $450. Like the streaming as an industry is moving really fast. I'm going to get all businessy and serious here for a second. Streaming as an industry is moving really fast. And I've been streaming for eight years or something now, probably even longer than that. And just in the last couple of years, especially COVID, it's exploded in terms of the popularity from the general public in terms of businesses looking to take advantage of it internally, in terms of the hardware that's available, the software that's available. 3 years ago, this Atom Mini didn't exist. You couldn't get a 4-camera capture card for under $2,000 or $3,000. We've got hardware here, so I don't even know where exactly. We've got hardware here that we used to use for multi-camera streams that cost us thousands and thousands, and nowadays we can do it, just the tips of our fingers there. And so I think it's an interesting field. It's really hard to stay ahead of it, but if you've got someone like me sharing knowledge and stuff, take advantage of it, I guess. I think it's a good skill to learn. If you're a technical person, it can teach you really great troubleshooting skills. I think that is. I think troubleshooting is a really good thing to consider and a good skill to have when it comes to technology. And I think that's probably a bigger part of me personally of doing well with streaming, is making sure that you know what can go wrong and that you know what you need to do to fix it. So I'm working on connecting my gaming PC with my streaming PC. So do you have 2 monitors? Do you have one monitor for your stream PC and one for your gaming PC, or are you sort of combining the setup there? I tried having a separate computer one time, but I found that having a capture card and a whole separate computer was a really complicated setup, and more often than not, it just didn't work. I'd just be using a regular old single one. It depends on your setup though. 1 for gaming, 2 for streaming, trying to combine. So what you could do is get something called a KVM, and what that is it allows you to plug in 1 keyboard and 1 mouse, but then it's got 2 or more separate outputs, so you could control 2 computers from 1 keyboard and mouse and just flick a switch between the 2. A lot of monitors will have multiple inputs, and they can switch automatically between them depending on which is active. So you might have, say you've got 2 monitors. One is for your gaming PC, but then the other one is for gaming and streaming. So let's say you're streaming, your gaming PC is on one monitor, but then your streaming PC is on another monitor. If you're not streaming, your second monitor might just flick over to your gaming PC, so then you've got 2 for gaming. So that might be one way that I do it. I've got 3 monitors on my computer at home and a capture card. And I just stream from my gaming PC, but it also depends on your specs. What CPU and GPU have you got? Because that'll actually be a really good question to answer. Does it take long to get used to streaming and learning the routine on the day? Everyone that I teach this setup to has said that once they've done it 2 or 3 times, it's easy. It's just remembering all of the extra little bits that are coming together to to complete the setup. It's remembering to make sure you've got your laptop with a charger. Make sure you remember you've got your capture card with the correct USB cable, correct HDMI cable. So like I rock up at my games. So normally you guys, we'd expect, when you're just regularly filming, that you would turn up to your game maybe an hour beforehand. So you've got 10, 15 minutes to set up the camera, and then if something goes wrong, it's extra time to set up. For a live stream, I'd say maybe an hour and a half would be probably good to give yourself extra time to set up. So there might be a ground where you have to go a really long distance to find power. You've got to talk to 3 different people to get a PowerPoint that's useful to you. So that's why I'd be turning up really early. But if you turn up early and you get set up quickly and you're all good to go, and you can just sit there and just wait till your game starts. You can watch the reserves and whatnot. I'd much rather you get there early and get set up early and be done and have extra time for troubleshooting than get there late, everything's broken, nothing works. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is making sure that you test beforehand and that you're aware of the whole setup and how it all fits together. James, does the antenna give better reception than you would get on your mobile? Absolutely. So I find that the mobile phones are fast, they provide faster internet, but it's a less reliable signal in that with streaming you need a constant set speed at minimum, whereas a phone might go really fast for 10 minutes and then for 10 seconds it might just drop out to nothing. At least with the dongle, firstly they're designed purely for taking in an internet source and constantly broadcasting it, so that already you're going to be getting a better overall signal out of that. The antenna helps greatly. So one good thing to do with the antenna is when you're at your filming location, just start looking around, use your eyes and look around in the horizon or something, and see if you can find a cell tower. See if you can find your nearest 4G or whatever tower. Often you're in the middle of the country, you're in a town of 500 people and there's one cell tower, and it's next to the footy oval. So preferably you'll want to point your antenna wherever you can see your cell tower. But if you can't see one, that's fine. Do a speed test. So I'll quickly show you here on the laptop. We will go here. So let's just assume I'm set up, ready to go 30 minutes before my game. I would Google speed test and just run that one quickly. So download doesn't matter too much. So we'll just let that go really quickly. Well, that download doesn't matter at all. Now upload is where it does matter. Now generally for upload we want anywhere from sort of 2 to 3 to 4 megabits per second at a minimum. Now I'm going to say it's 1.77 because I'm streaming on the laptop next to me as well. So if I go back, sorry. So instead of using Google's test, what we'll do is use the Ookla test. So Ookla is sort of the premier internet speed test website. So we can go here, and it's got a bunch of different servers that it can connect to, but it'll find the one that, it'll find the connection that's going to be most suitable to you, so the one that's closest geographically or is just providing the best latency to your connection. So you can see now that we've gone to the Ookla speed test, all of a sudden our upload's 60 instead of 1.6. But you might get to your ground and you might find that you're struggling to get 2 megabits down. if that's the case, that's where you get your antenna, you get your full length of cable, and what have I done? Pressing buttons here. Yeah, you get your full length of cable, and you literally would put it somewhere else and do another speed test. Find another place to stick it, do another speed test, and you might spend 10 minutes, you might wander around trying to figure it out, and you can't get a good, that's the sort of stuff you've got to do there. I'm going to just hang this up. Yeah, I found when I used my phone for the hotspot last weekend, I was able to get a good connection, but it's one of those things where just because I had a good connection that one time does not mean that that's going to work for you every single time. Now, I've sort of slowly been going over some of the little troubleshooting steps you guys have been asking, which is good. So there are a few more little bits and pieces that we do need to talk about. So the first one, and probably the one that can be the most frustrating on the day, is when you've plugged in your capture card and you go into OBS. So we'll do that here. We'll go back into OBS. You've gone into OBS and you've gone to add your capture card, and I'm just going to try and sort of fake the example here. You've gone to add your capture card and you've selected your HD60S, but there's just nothing there. So that's a really common scenario, is that it just won't work. Even though you can, it's plugged in and it's ready to go. Actually, I forgot to mention earlier. So let me swap back to this view here. So on our capture card, there's actually some lights on the front. So I unplug and replug. So if you watch carefully, you'll notice that it flashed white twice when I plugged the cable in. Now, that might happen when I plug it in on this end, but it might also happen when I plug it into the laptop end. So let's just demonstrate that there. So you can see, so two white flashes means you're A-OK and that your capture card is happy and it's ready to receive a connection. Now let's just, again, putting together another hypothetical, let me find a USB cable that I know won't work with it. So, random hypothetical scenario. I bet you it'll prove me wrong and it'll work perfectly fine here. So you see here I'm using a USB cable that shouldn't work. I'll plug it in and it's just proven me wrong. So that's great. Okay, so normally when you plug it in and something's wrong, it'll either flash once white or it will flash red. So if it flashes red, that's how you know something's wrong, and it's almost always the USB cable, and that's why I stress, make sure this USB cable that comes in the box for your game capture goes back in this box and always stays with it. That's probably one of the biggest things to stress about individual pieces of gear, is that USB cable. I cannot tell you how many live streams I've had die with random people because there was just a capture card problem because of the cable. So let's just assume that it's gone red and OBS is no go. So my first step is reboot the laptop. Let me flip back here. So yeah, my first suggestion, and that it actually goes for everything for this stuff. Turn it off and on again. Every time I hear that or say it, people think I'm joking. I'm not. Your camera's not working, and you know what? If the capture card isn't working, I would turn the camera off and on again. Reboot the laptop. Turn your 4G dongle off and on again. That's my first step. 9 times out of 10, rebooting the laptop, or even just restarting OBS. So, say if you're at this point and you've got the black window here, I might decide to just close OBS And now a great thing about OBS is you don't have to save anything. There's no file save as or anything like that. We can just reopen OBS. I'm going to pin that to the taskbar. We can just reopen OBS, and what's awesome is that everything is just set up, ready to go, all done, all good. We can see here that Elgato is now working because I plugged it in correctly. But yeah, if first step, restart OBS, just close it and reopen it because you don't have to redo anything. It's just good to go. Sorry, one sec. I've just got to answer another message. No, we're good. We're good for now. Back here. So yeah, first restart OBS and then restart the laptop. 9 times out of 10, that's going to fix it. If not, again, replug all your connectors. You might have to swap the HDMI connector around, so just change which ends are plugged into which end. And that's especially the case when you start, bringing in your really long HDMI cables. You might have to change the ends that the connectors plug into, which is fine. But then another thing you can do in this case is what you can also do is change some of these settings. So you might find that going in, changing this device default resolution to custom and waiting 1 second, and then what we can do is there's a drop down menu for resolution and we'll select that, and then you can always do either match output FPS or even select 60 or 30, either 60, 30 or 25. Please stay away from NTSC if possible. You might have to change those settings there. In terms of capture card issues, that's the main issue that you'll have there. I think that's sort of the main thing. Another issue with the capture card is that it needs drivers to be installed. So there's a piece of software called, I think it's actually just called Elgato Game Capture, that you need to download for this to work with your laptop. And that's generally why we prefer to give you a work laptop. This laptop right here doesn't do anything else but stream. It basically just has Chrome and OBS on it, already set up, ready to go. So you don't have to worry about whether the capture card's going to work with your laptop. But again, that just stresses the importance of doing your testing, making sure that you go back beforehand on your Friday afternoon and make sure that your capture card works. In saying that, there's always going to be stuff that goes wrong. You're never going to be able to run a perfect stream. There's going to be a time where your laptop just is dead, or that every USB cable and every HDMI cable might not work. That's when you do contact us first, and we will, us as Red Onion as a team, will all work together to get you there. But if it so happens that we can't get a stream up, then we still film the game like normal. So I'm just going to check my list and see if there's anything else I need to mention. I think that's about it. There's a couple of little bits and pieces like commentary and those sorts of things that we haven't spoken about, probably for another day. I was hoping we'd get a couple more people in today, but I do appreciate you guys coming in. Any other questions at this point? We're probably pretty close to sort of finishing up here. When you do get into a routine week to week, I find that I can get a stream set up from start to finish, including camera setup, in about 15 minutes. And if you're turning up 90 minutes beforehand, that gives you over an hour to sit there and potentially troubleshoot, but potentially sit there and relax and just take it easy. So, yeah, I think that's the bulk of it for now. Yeah, questions, or Brad, if I can help you with your streaming computer setup. And while you guys ask a couple of questions, I'm going to start rolling some cables because that is something that I stress all the time, and it's very helpful. Now, just because I'm, showing you guys all this stuff doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be streaming every single week, from here on out or anything. We kind of just wanted to, personally, I've got the knowledge to share, and I'm happy for everyone else to learn from me, because I think streaming is cool, and I think everyone else should. I think, if you want to get into it, then get into it. It's not that hard to do. But we also just want as many people as possible being aware of our systems and how we do things, so that if, in an emergency you do need to do a live stream, we can hand you a kit, send you an email, and you can sort of just be on your way. One thing when rolling cables, please don't whip them around. Some of the connectors, particularly HDMI and XLR, if you bang the connectors around too much, you can bend your metal, and I find that the connectors might not fit properly. XLR is notorious for bending into positions that aren't helpful. So yeah, just don't be throwing cables all over the floor or anything. James, in the longer term, are you planning to have your scoring system show goals, points, and the total? I am, yeah. So what I'll quickly pull up here is something that I have been working on, and I just tested yesterday for my live stream, which is really cool. Yeah, that's fine. So what I've got here is just a little app that I created. You can run on your phone. And so this is just as a pure example. Select Bendigo, round 15 that just went. And then Tyler, your game, South Bendigo. I think yours was South Bendigo, right? So you can see here we've got our goal behind score, goal behind score. We've also got buttons for highlights as well. And the idea is that you'd use this on your phone. So you'd have your phone in your hand, camera, well, not in your hand, but next to you. You're filming, and you do the score on your phone, but then you've got the laptop off to the side, and the score just goes through automatically, filters through. That's something that we're looking to do. So it's coming. Like Red Scores is not a stopgap, but it was just the start of that process of making life easier, and we're always looking for more ways to make it better. So yeah, I think that's about it, guys. Thank you for popping in. Oh, and that's the thing, James. Like it's all about practice. Like I still make mistakes every single live stream. I'll forget to show an ad at a quarter break, or like there's so many. It's so easy to make mistakes with this stuff. But if you know what you're doing, if your head's in the game and you are genuinely interested in it, then there's not much more you can do than that. So yeah. In terms of practice, I don't know how things are looking at the moment. So maybe, I don't know how things are looking in terms of our operators, but maybe when we've got a spare weekend, we could get you onto, someone else's stream to sort of hover over and see how it works. I've added scores a couple of times post-filming, and that is a real pain. Yeah, it definitely is a real pain. So we're always looking for ways to make it easier, and that's sort of a big part of what I do, is making my job and everyone else's job a lot easier. I'm not the only person that streams, and it's not as easy for me as it might be for everyone else. But yeah. I'm really glad you guys enjoyed it. And if you do have questions, if you finish watching and you wake up tomorrow and you realise there's something I missed, there's a question you want to know, just send me an email. You guys do have my email address now. I'm always happy to answer questions. And there'll be more of these as well, so do keep an eye out. The next one might be more or less the same sort of thing, and I try and get some more operators to come along. So you don't have to come along for everyone, but we're always going to be learning new things, and I'm sure there's points that I've forgotten to mention here. So, is there any other questions just before we sign off? I guess that was a good 2 hours. I thought we were going to get through it a bit quicker, but I'm actually glad that it took kind of that long, because it meant that we could sort of cover all of these different points. Yeah, so if you want to buy gear for yourself, then go for it. And if you're looking for recommendations, I'm a big nerd, so if you're curious about what computer you want to get, or what's the correct capture card, or what camera should I get, I can help with all that sort of stuff. Don't go out and buy stuff assuming that you'll use it with us or anything like that. But if you want to go out there and do more streaming, then definitely go out there and do more. But anyway, I'll leave you guys to it for the afternoon. Appreciate it. We'll talk later, guys. Thank you.